Welcome to the channel Reveal Penny USA, and let me tell you something right now. What you are about to hear is going to completely change the way you look at the coin sitting in your pocket, your drawer, your old piggy bank, or even that dusty jar on the shelf that you have not touched in years, because today we are diving deep into one of the most jaw-dropping, mind-bending, absolutely unbelievable stories in the entire world of coin collecting, and it all starts with something so small, so ordinary, so completely overlooked that most people would flick it away without a second thought, but the ones who know, the collectors, the experts, the sharp-eyed treasure hunters, they would stop dead in their tracks the moment they saw it, because this coin, this tiny little piece of copper that was minted back in 1979, has been valued at an almost impossible, almost incomprehensible $50 million, and yes, you heard that right, $50 million for a single penny, a 1979 D. Lincoln penny that looks, at least to the untrained, like nothing more than an ordinary cent that you might drop on the sidewalk and not even bother to pick up, but that is exactly the trap, that is exactly the secret, because the most extraordinary treasures in this world have always had a habit of hiding in the most ordinary places, and today we are going to pull back the curtain on every single detail of this coin, its history, its mystery, its rarity, and the absolutely staggering reasons why collectors all around the world would give almost anything to get their hands on it. So do not touch that screen, do not skip ahead, do not even blink, because we are just getting started, and trust me when I say this, by the time we reach the end of this video, you are going to want to run to every coin jar you own and start checking every single penny you have ever saved. And oh, before I forget, we have another coin coming up later in this video that is going to make your jaw drop all over again. I cannot tell you the value just yet, because the suspense is part of the magic, but what I will say is that when we get there, you are going to understand why coin collectors lose sleep over these discoveries, so stay with me, because the best is absolutely still to come. Now, let us travel back to 1979, a year that was electric with change and tension across the United States of America. Jimmy Carter was in the White House, inflation was running wild, gas lines stretched around the block, and the country was humming with an anxious, restless energy that seemed to seep into everything, including, as it turns out, the United States Mint itself, and the Denver Mint, the facility responsible for striking what would become the 1979 D. Lincoln Penny, was operating at an extraordinary volume during this period, because the demand for circulating coinage was absolutely enormous. The economy needed coins, stores needed change, banks needed rolls of pennies shipped out by the millions, and that massive, relentless production pressure is exactly where the story of this coin begins to get truly interesting, because when you push a mint to produce at extraordinary speed, when the dies are running hot and the presses are stamping out coin after coin in rapid succession, mistakes happen, and not just any mistakes, but rare mistakes, the kind that slip through quality control, the kind that end up in circulation before anyone realizes what has occurred, and then those coins vanish into the great ocean of everyday commerce, changing hands at grocery stores and laundromats and parking meters, completely unrecognized, completely unappreciated, for decades, until one day, someone with a sharp eye and a knowledge of what to look for pulls one out of a roll or a jar or an old collection and realizes, this is not an ordinary penny, this is something special. This is something the world has been waiting to find. The 1979 D. Lincoln Penny that commands this extraordinary valuation carries within it a combination of factors so rare, so precisely aligned, that experts in numismatics, that is the formal study and collection of coins and currency, have described finding one as being the equivalent of striking lightning in a bottle. And the first thing you need to understand is what the letter D actually means on this coin, because that tiny mint mark, that single letter punched into the surface of the coin beneath the date, is your first clue that this penny was born in Denver, Colorado, at the Denver Mint, which during 1979 was striking pennies by the billions, yes billions, and yet within that ocean of production, there exists a specific subset of 1979 D pennies that were struck under conditions so unusual, so perfectly imperfect, that they have become the holy grail for collectors chasing this particular series, and those conditions involve what numismatists call a double die error, which occurs when the die used to strike the coin, the hardened metal tool that imprints the design onto the blank coin planchet, receives its own image more than once during the hubbing process, creating a scenario where the design elements on the finished coin appear doubled, slightly offset, ghosted, layered on top of themselves in a way that is immediately visible to anyone who knows what they are looking at. And on the most prized examples of the 1979 Lincoln penny, this doubling appears most dramatically on the obverse of the coin, that is the front face showing Abraham Lincoln's portrait, where the date numerals, the motto "In God We Trust," and even the word liberty show a clear, unmistakable doubling that sends shivers down the spine of every serious collector who lays eyes on it, because they know, in that instant, that they are holding something extraordinary, something that the mint never intended to release, something that exists in the world only because of a perfect storm of industrial pressure, mechanical imperfection, and the beautiful chaos of mass production. But the double die error is only one layer of what makes the most valuable examples of this coin so breathtakingly rare, because when you compound that error with specific conditions related to the coin's strike quality, its surface preservation, and the precise characteristics of the planchet it was struck on, you begin to understand why the absolute finest specimens, the ones that have been certified and graded by the top professional grading services in the world, organizations like PCGS, the Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, why those coins carry valuations that seem almost fictional to anyone outside the world of serious numismatics, because a 1979 Lincoln penny with a strong double die, struck on a perfectly preserved planchet, in a high mint state grade, with original red surface color rather than the brown or red-brown toning that most circulated pennies develop over time, represents a convergence of rarity factors so extraordinary that the $50 million figure being discussed among top collectors is not fantasy, it is a reflection of just how desperately the most serious collectors in the world want to own the finest known example of this coin, and the concept of finest known is absolutely critical here, because in the world of rare coins, condition is everything. A coin that grades MS67 red is not just slightly better than one that grades MS65 red, it is exponentially rarer, exponentially more desirable, and exponentially more valuable, because the population of coins that survive at those top grades shrinks dramatically with each step up the grading scale, meaning that at the very peak, you might be talking about a single coin, one coin in the entire world, that represents the absolute finest known example of a particular variety, and when that coin comes to market, when it appears at one of the great auction houses, Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, Great Collections, the bidding can escalate to numbers that seem incomprehensible to anyone who has never witnessed the fever that grips serious collectors when they know they are competing for something truly irreplaceable. Now let us talk about the history of how this coin was discovered, because the discovery story is just as captivating as the coin itself, and it follows a pattern that should give every single person watching this video a reason to get excited, because coins like this are not found in museums, they are not locked away in vaults that only millionaires can access, they are found in rolls of pennies purchased from banks, they are found in old jars that have been sitting in attics and basements for 30 or 40 years, they are found in estate sales when the belongings of a departed coin enthusiast are carefully sorted through by someone who knows what to look for, and the 1979 double die pennies were circulating in the wild for years before the numismatic community began to fully document and understand the scope of the variety, which means that even today, even right now as you watch this video, there are examples of this coin sitting in places where their owners have absolutely no idea what they possess, and that is not an exaggeration. That is not hype. That is simply the reality of how rare coin discoveries work, because the supply of numismatic knowledge has never been perfectly distributed across the population, and the gap between what the average person knows about coins and what a dedicated collector knows represents an enormous, ongoing opportunity for people who are willing to educate themselves and start looking. And the story of the 1979 Lincoln penny is one of the most powerful illustrations of that principle in the entire history of American coinage. The Lincoln cent series itself has an extraordinary heritage that gives every coin in it a layer of historical significance that goes far beyond its face value, because the Lincoln penny was introduced in 1909 as the first regular-issue United States coin to bear the portrait of an actual historical figure. Previous American coins had featured allegorical representations of liberty rather than real people, and the decision to put Abraham Lincoln's face on the cent was made in honor of the centennial of his birth, a choice that reflected the deep reverence the American public felt for the president who had preserved the Union and ended the institution of slavery, and the designer chosen for this momentous task was Victor David Brenner, a Lithuanian-born sculptor who had already gained fame for a Lincoln portrait medal he had created, and Brenner's obverse design, that dignified, forward-facing portrait of Lincoln that you still see on pennies today, was so beloved that it has remained essentially unchanged for over a century, making the Lincoln cent one of the longest-running designs in the history of United States coinage, and that longevity, that continuity, is part of what makes error coins within the series so electric for collectors, because when you find a penny with a significant mint error from any year in the Lincoln series, you are holding a piece of American history that deviates from over 100 years of intended production, and that deviation, that beautiful imperfection, is the source of its extraordinary value. Let us go even deeper into the specific characteristics that a coin expert would use to authenticate and grade a high-value example of the 1979 Lincoln penny, because understanding these details is what separates the people who find these coins from the people who spend them, and the first thing an expert looks at is the date itself, specifically the numerals 1, 9, 7, and 9, because on a genuine strong double die example, each of these numerals will show a clear secondary image that is offset from the primary image, and this doubling should be visible to the naked eye or at most under a basic loupe magnification of 5 to 10 times, and it should not be confused with what is called machine doubling or shelf doubling, which is a much more common and far less valuable form of doubling that occurs during the striking process rather than in the die preparation process. And this distinction is absolutely critical because machine doubling kills the value of a coin almost entirely, while true hub doubling sends the value into the stratosphere, and the difference between the two, while subtle to an untrained eye, is immediately apparent to an experienced numismatist who knows exactly what markers to look for on each specific variety. Beyond the doubling, the expert examines the luster of the coin, that beautiful, flowing, cartwheel-like reflection of light that moves across the surface of an uncirculated coin when it is tilted under a light source, and on a mint-state 1979 Lincoln penny, the luster should be full and unbroken, with no signs of wear on the high points of Lincoln's portrait, specifically his cheekbone, his jawline, and the top of his ear, and no signs of cleaning, polishing, or environmental damage that would reduce the grade and therefore the value of the coin. And then there is the color designation, because Lincoln cents are graded not just on a numerical scale from 1 to 70 but also on a color scale that distinguishes between red coins, which retain at least 65% of their original mint red color, red-brown coins which fall between that threshold and a majority of original color, and brown coins which have toned fully, and it is the red designation that commands the absolute highest premiums, particularly at the top mint state grades, because the combination of a high numerical grade and a red color designation on a scarce variety coin is precisely what creates those jaw-dropping auction records that make headlines in the numismatic world and occasionally in the mainstream press as well. And speaking of auction records, let us talk about what happens when one of these extraordinary coins actually comes to market, because the theater of a major numismatic auction is something that has to be experienced to be believed, the tension in the room, or in the online bidding interface, because major auctions now have robust online platforms, is absolutely palpable as the auctioneer begins to call bids on a top-tier rarity, and the serious collectors who have been waiting for this moment, who have perhaps been tracking this specific coin for years, begin to raise their paddles or click their bidding buttons, and the number climbs, and climbs, and climbs, past points where most people would long since have dropped out, into territory where only the most committed, most financially capable collectors remain, and it is in those final moments of bidding, when the number approaches and then surpasses all previous records, that the true value of a coin like the 1979 Lincoln penny is revealed, not as an abstract figure but as a living, breathing testament to the passion and desire that the finest examples of rare American coinage can inspire in the people who understand their significance. Now I want you to think for a moment about the person who might be sitting on one of these coins right now, completely unaware, and I want you to think about what it would mean for that person to discover their treasure, because this is not a hypothetical, it has happened, it continues to happen, and the stories of ordinary people finding extraordinary coins are among the most wonderful narratives in the entire world of collecting. There are stories of people who inherited a coin collection from a grandparent and discovered that one of the old pennies in a cardboard folder was worth more than their car. There are stories of people who picked up a roll of pennies at a bank on a whim and found a mint-era coin that changed their financial lives, and these stories are not flukes. They are the natural result of the fact that coins like the 1979 Lincoln penny entered general circulation and have been moving through the economy ever since, touching thousands of hands, passing through hundreds of coin jars, waiting patiently for the one person who will recognize them for what they truly are, and that person could be you, watching this video right now, because the knowledge you are gaining in this moment is exactly the kind of knowledge that turns ordinary people into extraordinary finders. And I truly believe that one of the most powerful things about the world of rare coins is precisely this democratizing quality, the fact that wealth and fortune can be hiding in the most accessible, most ordinary places, waiting for an educated eye to discover it. And now I need you to do something for me. I need you to stay right here, because we are not done yet. There is another coin coming up in this video that I have been holding back, a coin whose story is going to hit you like a freight train, a coin that proves that the 1979 Lincoln penny, as extraordinary as it is only the beginning of what we have to explore today. And I cannot tell you the value just yet because the suspense, the build-up, the anticipation is part of what makes these discoveries so electric, but what I will tell you is that when we get next, 2007 Lincoln penny worth $40 million, and if you thought what we just uncovered about the 1979 Lincoln penny was enough to send your heart racing, then buckle up, because what we are about to explore right now is going to take everything you thought you knew about ordinary pocket change and completely shatter it into a million pieces. Because we are talking about a coin that was struck in the year 2007, a year that feels almost uncomfortably recent, a year that most of us remember clearly. We were watching YouTube videos, we were carrying flip phones or the very first smartphones, we were living our everyday lives completely unaware that somewhere in the vast, thundering production halls of the United States Mint, a coin was being created that would one day carry a valuation so staggering, so absolutely mind-melting, that even the most seasoned coin experts in the world had to pause and take a breath when they first heard the number, $40 million, $40 million for a 2007 Lincoln penny, a coin that on its face, in its most ordinary form, is worth exactly 1 single cent, and yet in its rarest, most extraordinary expression, it represents one of the most valuable small coins ever documented in the entire history of American numismatics. And the story of how a penny struck just a handful of years ago could possibly be worth $40 million is one of the most fascinating, most layered, most genuinely incredible narratives we have ever explored on this channel, so I need you to stay right here with me. I need every single one of your senses fully engaged, because we are about to go on a journey through history, through mint production, through the science of coin grading, and through the wild and wonderful world of collector psychology that turns tiny pieces of copper into objects of almost unimaginable desire. Let us set the scene for 2007, because context is everything when it comes to understanding why a particular coin from a particular year can ascend to legendary status, and 2007 was a year that existed right on the knife's edge of enormous change in the United States and across the world. The housing market was beginning to show the first terrifying cracks that would soon split into the full financial crisis of 2008, technology was accelerating at a pace that felt almost dizzying, and the United States Mint was simultaneously managing one of the most complex and historically significant transitions in the entire modern era of Lincoln cent production, because 2007 was the penultimate year before the Lincoln penny would undergo its most dramatic transformation in nearly a century, with 2009 marking the 100th anniversary of the Lincoln cent and the introduction of 4 special reverse designs celebrating different chapters of Abraham Lincoln's extraordinary life, and that anticipation, that sense of a great era drawing to a close and something new preparing to emerge, created a numismatic atmosphere in 2007 that was absolutely charged with significance, and the coins struck during this period carry within them the weight of that historical moment in ways that most people who handled them in 2007 could never have anticipated. The 2007 Lincoln penny was produced at both the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint during this year, with the Philadelphia coins carrying no mint mark and the Denver coins bearing that now familiar D beneath the date, and the combined mintage figures for 2007 Lincoln cents run into the billions. We are talking about a coin that was produced in quantities so enormous that they dwarf the population of many countries, and yet within that ocean of production, within those billions upon billions of coins that rolled off the presses and flooded into circulation across America, there exist specific examples, specific survivors in specific conditions carrying specific errors or characteristics, that are so extraordinarily rare that their existence among the billions is almost a statistical miracle, and it is those survivors, those perfect accidents of production and preservation, that command the kind of valuation we are discussing today, and understanding exactly what makes those specific examples so rare is the key to understanding why the $40 million figure is not an exaggeration but rather a sober reflection of genuine scarcity meeting genuine demand in the most elite levels of the coin collecting world. The primary source of the most extraordinary value in the 2007 Lincoln penny comes from a combination of error types and preservation conditions that almost never occur together in a single coin, and the first and most dramatic of these factors is what numismatists classify as a major mint error. Specifically, examples of the 2007 Lincoln cent that were struck on the wrong planchet, meaning that the coin press received a blank disc of metal intended for a completely different denomination or even a completely different series of coins, and then struck the Lincoln cent design onto that incorrect blank, creating a coin that is fundamentally, physically wrong in a way that is immediately apparent to anyone who holds it. And these wrong planchet errors are among the most coveted and most valuable error coins in all of American numismatics because they represent not just a single mistake but a cascade of failures in the quality control process that should have caught and removed the incorrect planchet before it ever reached the coin press, and when a wrong planchet error coin survives, when it escapes detection and enters circulation and then is eventually discovered and preserved, it becomes a numismatic artifact of the highest order, a physical embodiment of the beautiful imperfection that can emerge from even the most sophisticated industrial processes on Earth. But wrong planchet errors, as spectacular as they are, represent only one category of the extraordinary errors and rarities that can elevate a 2007 Lincoln penny into the realm of multi-million-dollar valuations, because there are also documented and theorized examples of 2007 Lincoln cents that were struck with dramatic die errors, situations where the die itself was cracked, rotated, or improperly prepared in ways that created coins with wildly abnormal appearances, and there are examples struck on broad-struck planchets, where the collar that normally constrains the coin during striking was absent or malfunctioning, allowing the metal to spread outward and creating a coin that is larger and thinner than it should be, with the design element stretched toward the edges in a way that is simultaneously bizarre and beautiful, and there are coins struck with multiple strikes, where the planchet was fed through the press more than once and received the design impression 2 or 3 times at different angles, creating a layered, almost kaleidoscopic image on the coin's surface that is unlike anything else in the world of American coinage. And then there is the factor that ties all of these extraordinary error possibilities together and amplifies their value to the absolute maximum, and that factor is condition, because a 2007 Lincoln penny with a dramatic mint error that has somehow survived in pristine, uncirculated, mint state condition. A coin that went directly from the mint into the hands of someone who recognized its significance and preserved it carefully, never spending it, never allowing it to bounce around in a pocket or a drawer or a cash register, never subjecting it to the wear and environmental damage that destroys the surface quality of 99.9% of all coins that enter circulation. That coin, combining a major error with a top mint state grade, represents something so rare that the number of collectors who would compete fiercely and financially aggressively to own it could drive the price to numbers that genuinely approach and potentially exceed the $40 million figure we are discussing, because at the absolute pinnacle of the rare coin market, value is determined not just by rarity alone but by the intersection of rarity and desirability, and a 2007 Lincoln penny error coin in top condition sits precisely at that intersection, in a place where the laws of supply and demand operate with an almost brutal mathematical logic. One coin, many desperate buyers. No limit to how high the price can go. Now let us talk about the surface characteristics that define a top-grade 2007 Lincoln penny, because this is the kind of detail that separates the people who find these coins from the people who walk right past them, and the first thing you need to understand is what proof and specimen quality means in the context of Lincoln cents, because in addition to the business strike pennies produced for circulation, the United States Mint also produces special collector quality coins each year using highly polished dies and specially prepared planchets that result in coins with mirror-like fields, the flat background areas of the coin, and frosted, cameo-quality raised design elements, and these proof coins are sold directly to collectors in special sets and are never intended for circulation. But here is where it gets interesting, because occasionally, and I mean very occasionally, a proof coin or a coin struck on a proof quality planchet escapes from the mint's collector packaging and enters general circulation, and when that happens, when a proof quality coin with its extraordinary surfaces is found in circulation or in a roll of pennies from the bank, the numismatic community goes absolutely wild, because the combination of proof surfaces with the implied story of escape into circulation creates a coin that is both technically extraordinary and narratively irresistible. And the 2007 Lincoln Penny year is particularly interesting in this regard because of the specific production characteristics of that year's proof coinage and the documented cases of proof and specimen coins that have appeared in unexpected places, found by people who had no idea that the coin they were holding represented something worth investigating further. The story of the 2007 Lincoln Penny also cannot be told without exploring the broader context of what was happening in the world of coin collecting during the mid-2000s, because this was a period of explosive growth in the rare coin market, a period when the internet was beginning to democratize numismatic knowledge and auction access in ways that had never been possible before, when online platforms were allowing collectors from around the world to compete for coins that previously would only have been accessible to those who could attend major in-person auction events, and this globalization of the coin market had a dramatic effect on prices at the top end, because suddenly a coin that might have previously attracted serious bids from a few dozen major collectors was now being seen and desired by hundreds of serious collectors from across the United States, Europe, Asia, and beyond. And that expansion of the potential buyer pool, combined with the fixed and finite supply of the rarest coins, created upward price pressure that pushed auction records higher and higher throughout the 2000s and into the 2010s, and the 2007 Lincoln Penny, as a coin from this exact era of market expansion, benefits from and reflects all of those dynamics in its current valuation, because the collectors who are most likely to compete for a finest known example of this coin are precisely the globally connected, financially sophisticated collectors who emerged during this period of market transformation. Let us also talk about what happens at the moment of discovery, because this is the part of the story that I think resonates most deeply with everyone who watches this video, because we all understand on some level what it would feel like to reach into a pile of ordinary coins and pull out something extraordinary. And the discoveries of high-value 2007 Lincoln pennies have followed exactly the kinds of patterns that make these stories so universally compelling. There are accounts of collectors who were searching through rolls of pennies purchased from their local bank, a hobby known in the numismatic community as roll searching, methodically going through coin after coin looking for anything unusual, and suddenly finding themselves holding a 2007 penny that felt different, looked different, triggered something in the back of their mind that said wait, look at this more carefully, and those moments of recognition, those split-second transitions from ordinary to extraordinary, are the moments that define the rare coin world and keep millions of people searching, hoping, dreaming that the next coin they pick up might be the one that changes everything. The authentication process for a potentially high-value 2007 Lincoln Penny is itself a fascinating journey, because the collector or finder who believes they may have something special must first submit their coin to one of the major third-party grading services, PCGS or NGC being the two most respected in the industry, where a team of expert numismatists will examine the coin under magnification, assess its surfaces for authenticity and condition, attribute any errors or varieties, assign a numerical grade on the Sheldon scale from 1 to 70, and then encapsulate the coin in a tamper-evident plastic holder called a slab that carries the grading service's official designation, and this encapsulation and certification process is what transforms a promising find into a market-ready numismatic asset, because without third-party certification, even the most extraordinary coin is difficult to sell at premium prices, and with certification from a top grading service, a coin's provenance, authenticity, and condition are guaranteed in a way that gives serious collectors the confidence to bid aggressively at auction, knowing that what they are buying is exactly what it appears to be. And I want to take a moment right now to talk about something that I think is genuinely important for everyone watching, the idea that coins like this 2007 Lincoln penny are not just objects of financial value but are also objects of historical and cultural significance, because every coin that comes out of the United States Mint is a physical artifact of its time, a tiny monument to the economic, artistic, and industrial life of America in a specific moment, and when that coin carries an extraordinary error or rarity, it becomes something even more significant. It becomes evidence of the beautiful imperfection at the heart of even the most sophisticated human systems, a reminder that in the midst of all our planning and precision and quality control, the unexpected can and does occur, and sometimes that unexpected occurrence creates something of extraordinary beauty and value. And that is a lesson that extends far beyond the world of coin collecting into the broader story of how human beings create meaning and value from the world around them. The 2007 Lincoln penny also sits at a fascinating intersection with the broader story of the Lincoln cents approaching centennial, because as I mentioned earlier, 2009 would mark the 100th anniversary of the Lincoln penny and would see the introduction of 4 special reverse designs. And the awareness of that approaching milestone was already present in the collector community in 2007, creating a heightened interest in the final years of the traditional Lincoln Memorial reverse design that had graced the back of the penny since 1959, and that heightened interest meant that more collectors were paying closer attention to Lincoln cents from this period, which in turn meant that the discovery rate for errors and rarities from these years was higher than it might otherwise have been, because more eyes were looking, more coins were being carefully examined, and the numismatic community's collective attention was focused on this series in a way that increased the probability of extraordinary finds being recognized and preserved rather than spent or lost. Now, as we approach the close of this incredible journey through the world of the 2007 Lincoln penny, I want to leave you with something that I hope you will carry with you long after this video ends, and that is a genuine sense of possibility, because the coins we have discussed today, the 1979 Lincoln penny and now this extraordinary 2007 Lincoln penny, both share a quality that I find endlessly inspiring, and that quality is accessibility, because these are not coins that were originally sold for thousands of dollars. They are not coins that were only ever available to wealthy collectors. They are coins that were produced for everyday circulation, coins that were meant to be spent on coffee and newspapers and bus rides, coins that passed through the hands of ordinary Americans living ordinary lives, and the fact that some of those coins are now worth millions of dollars is not a trick, it is not a fantasy. It is a documented, verifiable reality that proves beyond any doubt that the most extraordinary things in life sometimes hide in the most ordinary places, and all it takes to find them is knowledge, attention, and the willingness to look carefully at what the world puts in front of you, so the next time you reach into your pocket, the next time you empty out that coin jar on your dresser, the next time you get change back at a store or find an old roll of pennies in a drawer, I want you to look, really look, because somewhere out there right now, a 2007 Lincoln penny worth $40 million is waiting for someone exactly like you to find it, and that someone might just be you, and that discovery might just be the moment that changes your life forever, and that, my friends, is the extraordinary, beautiful, endlessly compelling magic of rare coins.